This is the Aptitude Outdoors podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world. Hey DJ, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on, man. Super excited to talk to you. Before we get started here, just how's your 2021 hunting season going?
First, I just got to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on your podcast. And secondly, I have to say my 2021 hunting season has just been almost like, a dream come true from the very beginning. And I still think I got, a little bit left here in Wisconsin. And if I can wrap my tag around that Wisconsin whitetail this year, it'll just be a complete dream season for me. Honestly, if somebody would have told me during the off season that I would have accomplished what I've accomplished so far this year, I don't think I would have believed them. But, I've shot not one, but two bucks of a lifetime this year. And I'm just hoping that I can actually fill that Wisconsin tag and then just call it a year and be done.
Yeah, man. My background, man, I got into hunting probably about 5 years ago. And, it's been a frustrating and fulfilling and fun journey for me. So I could imagine it's probably, the same for you. I know you grew up hunting, I listened to some other stuff you've been on. And so what was it like? Cause I don't have that experience. I didn't grow up hunting at all. I was surrounded by it. My dad hunted when he was young, but I didn't get to grow up with that. So how has your life been in the outdoors?
For me, I grew up in a family of outdoorsmen. My great grandma had 7 kids. She had 5 boys and 2 girls. And, every single last one of them, could hunt, they could fish, they could cook, and fight, if you asked them about it. But literally, it's just, I couldn't imagine my life being any different because, that was just the environment that I was in. Everybody hunted, everybody fished, everybody trapped, everybody had their own special, specific species of fish, whether that be freshwater or saltwater. Everybody had their specific species of either small game or big game, whether that be deer or hog or turkey, or everybody had their own mixture. Luckily for me, I was able to grow up and kind of, have these opportunities in big game hunting and small game hunting and saltwater fishing and freshwater fishing. So I really had the ability to choose what I had liked most. And naturally, I had adapted to deer dog hunting, which is very, very popular down south. And I still miss it to this very day. And I haven't been since, I want to say, back in 2013 or 2014, back when I was in college. I came home for a Christmas break. But then my dad kind of ignited the passion for me with bow hunting, because I just thought it was the coolest thing ever for him to go out with a bow and shoot something and bring it back home. Mm-hmm. I can remember many a fall nights after school, me and my sisters would be sitting up in the living room waiting for my dog Strike. That's what I called him. He was a bloodhound. I'd be waiting for him to start barking, because he'd bark and you'd have vehicles coming maybe half a block away or something like that, or they're getting right at the stop sign before they come off the dirt road, and he'd just be barking, and we'd always just run and wait for my dad's truck to get under the street light, because then you could look back and check on that old Yamaha Motor 4, see if he had a deer or something on the back. It didn't matter if it was a buck or a doe. We just got excited to see him, bringing something home, and then it's an excuse to go run outside and stay up late, help him clean one, help him, do all that fun stuff. And it's been, it's been somewhat a difficult transition for me, because I grew up mostly hunting in, Southeast Georgia and Northeast Florida. And then I came up to college here in Minnesota back in 2012. And that's when I just basically got the whole Midwest hunting experience. And when I think about my journey going from back then to where I'm at now, I've had to make leaps and bounds, but it's been an incredible journey. From back in only knowing a handful of pieces to go hunt public land, onto getting my first lease and getting my first buck with a bow in Minnesota in 2016. And then getting my first buck with a rifle in, 2018 here in Minnesota. And then, this year being a part of the Duluth City Hunt for the first time, getting my biggest buck to date. And even thinking back to going out to, Colorado, because I had won a Colorado velvet mule deer trip from the My World Outdoors tour, the My World Outdoors group with Brandon Adams and JC, and all those great guys that had a hand and a role to play in that. Even Kyle as well. But it's been quite the journey, and I'd be lying if I would tell you that everybody has it figured out, but nobody truly ever has it figured out.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say, like, coming from the South and then moving up here in the Midwest? I'm out of Ohio, and everybody that I know from out of state, out of the Midwest, whether it be the East Coast or the South or the West Coast or whatever, they always say they're jealous because they always say the Midwest has these monster bucks, which I'm not complaining about over here. But what's the main differences between hunting down south and hunting up here?
Everything is different. Like, to me, in my opinion, you have to be able to adapt to the environment that you're in, and if you can't do that, you're often not going to find success. And the habitat is different, the hunting pressure is different, the seasons are longer. There's so many aspects that come into play when you're hunting in the Southeast or in the South compared to hunting in the Midwest and certain areas of the Midwest. And I think a lot of people, like, when they turn on their TV, they'll get on YouTube or the hunting channel, versus channel, sportsman channel, etc., and they'll see somebody killing a big buck in the Midwest, and they think that that's so easily attainable. And I'm like, it is if you have a good hunting IQ, or one, you got a lot of money, or two, you want to hunt and somebody allows you to come on their property that they have that's managed, or options 4, 5, and 6 is you get out here and you got to bust your ass and you learn as much as you can learn, and you start somewhere. And some people, they're allowed to come to the Midwest, or they have that opportunity to come to the Midwest and they do great. And then some people come to the Midwest and they get their butt kicked and they start scratching their heads. It's like, wow, those guys on TV made it look like it was so easy. And it's like, it's literally, it's not. And it all depends on the environment, and it all depends on that individual's ability to hunt and to put things together quickly. And I'd say for me, I've seen my harvest rate, go up higher once I started being able to break down, the terrain differently, the habitat from bed, food sources, water sources, hunting pressure, rifle hunting pressure, which areas that I feel like may be good, but, at that point in the season, what am I finding, like, due to my in-season scouting? And I feel like that's been the biggest thing, because what I used to do in years past was I put in so much work scouting, in the off season, that I wouldn't really as much put any scouting in season. So it's like, once I felt like I started putting some of those pictures together, I started finding, better deer. I started getting into better areas, and I started seeing, more deer. But it's all, it's all a part of the process. It's all a part of the journey. And I feel like, that's something that everybody has to go through in order, to learn. Hunting down south was fun. We had private property close to 90 acres in Callahan, Florida, where I grew up at. And we had a hunt club down in, Southeast Georgia, up in Camden County. And, we deer dog hunt, and we, quote unquote, still hunt for a lot of the Southerners, which is, basic hunting if you go anywhere else. And I had those opportunities, and to have the mixture, to have the best of both worlds, I feel like it's great, because it's a lot of stuff I can rely upon. But in a sense, though, too, some of those habits were really, hurting me when I was hunting in the Midwest, because I wasn't adapting how I was supposed to adapt.
Yeah, and it's wild for me to just kind of to go through these last 5 years or so. I mean, I got really lucky. My first time I ever went hunting, I just happened to know a guy, and for me, it's pretty wild, because I don't know where this interest came from. I think it's just kind of like I don't know. I don't know a lot of people who hunt, so I just kind of fell into it because I've always been super huge into the outdoors in general, whether it be backpacking, kayaking, all this recreational activities that are fun. And I think hunting for me was that next level. And I had a buddy who wanted to hunt, or who liked to hunt, but he never had a place because like there's a lot of private land out here. It's all cornfields, which like you just said, it's harder to find. There's not a ton of public land where I'm at, and luckily my father-in-law has a place, and we started hunting there. And like literally like my second day out, I shot a buck with a shotgun during gun week, and I was like, oh, this is great, man! I can't wait to do this. And then I went on like a 4-year dry streak with nothing. So yeah, that myth of like every time you step out in the woods here in the Midwest holds true, that you're just going to shoot a giant monster buck, because I can attest that that's not the case. So, but yeah, your hunt that you won for the mule deer sounded super awesome, man. That story that you told in the past, I've heard, bits and pieces, is just amazing. So how did that all come together? And like, what was that experience like to be able to hunt a mule deer? Because that's on my bucket list as well.
Oh my gosh, man. It's like, honestly, if I wasn't there, I would not have believed like that it was that easy and that it happened so easily. It's like, I had been following Brandon Adams for a long time, on Instagram, and had been watching some of the stuff, on TV, because he's formerly from, major. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm yawning.
Oh, it's all good. It's late. I feel you.
He's formerly from Major League Bowhunter, so I gotten to know about his personality from the show, and then I started following him on IG because I liked what he was doing, and I'm like, who the heck is this guy, wearing these Realtree flat bills, and he's killing deer literally everywhere, he's going. He's completed the Oklahoma Grand Slam, I think twice, and it's like, just watching him, have all these incredible accomplishments, and it was just like someone I kind of, had admired, because it's like, me personally, like I get inspired when I can see someone going out there having the same passion I have about hunting, and they're going out there and they're just like, they're killing things left and right. And most importantly, they're having fun and they're broadcasting how fun it is. And I feel like I have to watch those types of people, because like, that's what I kind of inspired to be like. I want to inspire people to get out and go hunt and have fun, hunting or fishing or whatever it is. But, following him, on his Instagram account at My World Outdoors and on YouTube, and I just saw, that they had like a free mule deer hunt giveaway. And then I'm just thinking to myself, it's like, you know what? I'm not even going to apply, because like you never win those types of things. You always hear about somebody from over in like Montreal, Canada, or from Australia, or somebody else winning something like this. So it's like, I'm never going to win. So I just remember being at work, and I'd entered twice. I entered on my personal account and my hunting account. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I'm getting a message from Brandon. He's like, hey, dude, you won the My World Outdoors free mule deer hunt giveaway. Would you be able to make it here on this date and time? I'm like, thinking to myself, like, wait a second, like, is this real? Like, I'm going to verify all this. So I'm going back to look at Brandon's account to make sure it's him with the actual check mark and everything beside. I'm like, wait, like, it's real. So then, like, he shot me his number, and then I was able to look back and look at a bunch of the stuff and look at how much stuff I won. I mean, man, it was just like they literally set you up for everything, man. Like, I won a free bow, a Hoyt Axis. I had got a free sight from HHA, Optimizer Tetra, dual stabilizers from HHA. I had won minerals from Twisted Oaks. I'd also got a bunch of My World Outdoors swag. I had got a Cobra Wilderness release that it came with it, which I love, by the way, which has been like one of my most favorite releases that I've ever shot with. And there was just so much stuff that it came with it that I literally could not believe it. And like literally Brandon was like, okay, well, stuff's just gonna start trickling in, and I already don't I can see I don't have to tell you to shoot your bow and to get out there and to do whatever you want to do, but it's like, but whatever bow you're gonna bring, whatever bow you're gonna shoot, make sure like you're shooting it and everything is all set. And so I do that, and literally, it seems like time was literally taking forever for it to get September. Like literally, like work week after work week after work week after work week after work week and stuff like that. And then finally, like the time was here, I got everything set, trucks all loaded up, and I drove through the night. I was so excited. I drove over like like 16 plus hours. I was awake for over 24 hours. And the
Jeez.
first and then the first person I met was JC, John Christopher from My World Outdoors as well. He's a character. And he's like asking me, so what do you want to do? You want to go to sleep or you want to go scout some freaking mule deer? I'm like, I want to scout some mule deer. You're all right. So then we got in the truck and literally, I didn't know it then. The first morning of us scouting, we saw, and I got to film the buck that I shot, on the second day of the archery season in Colorado. So then later that day, Brandon gets into town, and I got to meet him, and I got to meet Axel, and then Tyler Saunders. And Tyler Saunders, he's a really cool guy too. He's a guy from Tennessee. Axel's from Pennsylvania, I believe. He runs Rack Daddies, and that's his whole thing. I don't know if you're familiar with that social media.
Not that I'm aware of, but there's so many social media, man. It's hard to keep up nowadays,
I know. Yeah. And I'm meeting all these great guys, and it's pretty funny because Tyler is the only person that I've ever met that has an official certificate for being a badass. Like, I've never seen anybody get an official certificate of being a badass.
Hell yeah.
And keep that in mind for a later part in the story. So we get there, we all, we meet up, we get together, shoot bows, we're filming, doing a little bit of B-roll stuff, and just basically just getting to know each other because they rented an Airbnb. Got to the Airbnb, got all settled in and stuff like that. And then before we know it, it's the first morning. It's the first morning, we seen a couple of does, and then that was it. And then we went back out later that evening, went to the spot that was called the kill spot. Mm-hmm. And we get in there, and we had a couple of mule deer that came out. And I happened to take a shot at one of the, I want to say either 3-year-old mule deers. He was either 2 or 3, one of the two. Mm-hmm. That's what we were trying to age him as. And I was so jacked up because Brandon was telling me, literally, I'm telling you right now, DJ, you can shoot whatever you want. But these deer are big. So, they're going to be really close. So they're going to be bigger than, they're going to be, smaller than they actually are, but they're still going to appear big if you can kind of, pick up on what that means kind of. So it's so these smaller deer are going to appear big because they're mule deer. And I've never seen them before, and they're going to be up close and personal. So they're going to appear even bigger than what they actually are. So the first one shows up, and he breaks away from the group. Brandon's got all the cameras and stuff rolling. He walks up to 30 yards, and he pegs us in the spot. And I'm sitting on my butt on a downward slope. And Brandon is behind me, and it's spooked. And everything that I was able to watch and research about mule deer was saying that when mule deer will spook, 9 times out of 10 they're going to stop and turn back and look at what it spooked them. They're not going to run that far, but they're going to stop and look back. So just stay ready. So this joker ran and stopped at maybe 57 yards. I ranged him once, ranged him twice. I drew back, I shot, and I thought I pinwheeled him. And I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm talking to Brandon. We're doing all this stuff. And then we go back and review footage. And it's it ended up hitting him in no man's land. And I can't tell you how that happened or what I did, if it was me being my release or if it was a shot angle for me, sitting on my butt. But I can't blame my equipment because I know my equipment was on.
Yeah.
And I had a shootout with Brandon that same day at 57 yards. So I know I can make a 57, I can make that type of shot because I did it. And I actually made a 57-yard shot shooting against Brandon in a shootout competition. So I know I can make this shot. So then we had to call Kyle Lopez, the owner of KB Outdoors and stuff like that. And because typically they had a, first blood rule. So whenever you shoot an animal, and then whenever you draw blood, if you recover the animal, not you're done. Mm-hmm. But I knew they had talked about it, and they understand that they know that I can shoot. I wasn't nervous. They reviewed the footage, and it wasn't like a shot that was so bad to the point where it's that they didn't want to let me continue. It was they had opted for, okay, well, you had an opportunity, DJ, so now we're going to give JC an opportunity. So Brandon made me go elk hunting with him the next morning, which I did not regret because we seen this big 300-inch plus, bull the first morning.
Dang.
First bull I had ever seen in my entire life. Like, and that I can probably give you the whole podcast on just that hunt alone. Like,
yeah, that has to be wild, man. I have never seen one, but I've heard they're massive.
dude, like, the crazy part was, like, we got in there, we got set up, and the first thing we could hear was like one of the dogs barking, like, a few miles east of us, and we could just hear him barking in this valley. Then all of a sudden you can hear like this loud raking sound. I'm like, what in the heck is that? And Brandon's like, those are bulls. I was like, what? And then it popped out right, 60, 70 yards, downward, from us, but there was no shot. And then they ended up working their way through the valley. And then that was that video that I was able to put up on my IG for everybody to see. So we get done doing that. And then we get to the gate, because I was always hopping out and getting the gate because, Brandon would drive, I'd get the gate. And then we had Tyler in the back with the cameras. So I'd ask Brandon, and everybody had agreed that JC was up to bat next for the mule deer. So we get to the gate, and I asked Brandon, like, hey, can we go, drive by the field to see if there's going to be any mule deer, sitting there. He's like, yeah, we can do that. So we literally drive past, and we're just driving. We get near the property, and then we get by the property, because like you can see the property from the main highway without even going onto it. And we're driving down the main highway, and then all I could see was just freaking tines hanging like over this big brush pile, like just tines, just like, and not like some of these little buck tines, like big buck tines, like hanging over the brush.
Shit.
And I'm like, Brandon, shooter, right there, like shooter. He's like, what? And he's like, surfing off the road. It's like, he's all jacked up too. He's like, okay, all right, well, let's spin around. I'm like, yeah, all right, spin the block, just using like all these ghetto references and stuff. And he's like, what? I'm like, just spin the block, man. And so we turn around, and Tyler is getting video of him and stuff like that. And he was the only one that we could see. So then we was like, well, I know you're excited and you want to get after him, but we have to give JC an opportunity. I'm like, well, keep this part in mind too. JC had his eyes set on the buck that we called the road buck.
Okay.
Which was every bit of, I'd probably say at least 190 inches, maybe even bigger. Dang. So that's what he had his eyes set on. And I knew that, and I think they knew that too, but we all had agreed that JC gets the next shot at any of these mule deer, because I've had my opportunity and I missed it. We get back to the house, and JC is like, what'd you guys do? Like, what was going on? Like, I saw the video from you, like, you guys this morning, like, what's up? I'm like, well, the big 3x4 we seen like the first morning, and the day before the season started, that evening, was sitting, bedded in a great position by the road. I was like, would you want to go after him? He goes, no, you're going to get your shit so you can go after him. I'm like, okay. Like, you don't got to tell me twice. And I got ready.
For real.
We shot a bow. We came up with the game plan, and we got to one of our scouting spots, and we broke out Onyx Hunt, and we were able to basically break down where we wanted to get to. The wind was perfect. We had Tyler, certified badass, in Brandon's truck with us. And then we had Axel and JC in one truck, opposite the property line, getting like that wide panoramic kind of shot of the entire hunt. And we got into position, and from where we had jumped the fence, it was like 100+ yards for us. No, it was over 200 yards. It was over I think it was 200. It was 224 yards from where we were sitting at, from the fence all the way to the trees that we wanted to get at. So we had to crawl. When I mean crawl, it was like I hadn't crawled that long since I was, back at football at the University of Minnesota Duluth. And even then I hated it. But this was kind of different. Like, sun's coming up. It's like it's getting hotter and hotter by the minute. We're crawling on top of all these dead cactus plants and stuff that are there, and there's rock, like there's glass because it's on the side of the road, and I'm literally like getting my knuckles cut up, my shins are hurting, my knees are hurting.
Yeah, man.
Shoulders are burning because I got my bow on my back, and I'm basically like crab crawling through the entire brush, trying not to make so much noise. But the buck was bedded in such a perfect position where it's like literally everything went right.
Wow.
Brandon is like looking back at me every couple of strides, and it wouldn't have, like, honestly, I don't think I would have harvested this deer without him, because like his experience was like really showing in those moments when I needed, like, guidance, and he was able to do that. So once we got to a certain point, once we got past 100 yards, it's like, okay, we're only going to crawl whenever cars are going by.
Mm-hmm.
So then we'd have a car going, we're crawling. Passes by, we stop. Truck comes by, go. Stop. It's like, go. It's almost like we're doing like this whole red light, green light kind of thing.
That has to be painstaking, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's running the camera on me, because we let Tyler, the certified badass, stay in the truck on the side of the road, and he had a state trooper actually come up behind him because he had the flashers going. He had the flashers going on the truck. So he's like, so what's going on here? And he's like, oh, well, I'm watching my friend get ready to go smoke a mule deer. He's like, where are they? He's like, oh, they're over there in the field. He's like, but yeah, I kind of got to pay attention to this. He's like, okay, well, good luck. And then like he takes off. So we had no idea none of this happened. So when Tyler was telling us that like a state trooper had pulled up behind him, we thought he was just joking, like being himself. It was like, no, he was dead serious, because it actually happened. So we got all that going. And finally we get to the tree, and the tree from where he was bedded at was 44 yards. Mm-hmm. So the way it ended up working out was Brandon told me that I need to shoot him whether he swings left or whether he swings right. So I just needed to be ready. And the minute he steps from out of that brush pile, go. But while Brandon is telling me this, the buck stands up.
Ooh.
He stood up and he was literally looking at us. But the brush was so tall and so high, it was covering up his eyes, but his ears was just looking at us. So he couldn't see us. And we're behind this big cottonwood tree. So it's like, it was like everything about it just went perfect, right? Everything was just going perfect. So he stands up, and I stand up because I think he's getting ready to swing either left or swing right. And he takes about 1 or 2 steps towards right, and then he starts going directly north away from us.
Ooh.
And that was when in my video, I don't know if you've seen that on my IG yet, but when I draw back, I'll draw back, but he's walking away. Mm-hmm. So then my heart's like, oh man. I'm thinking to myself like, damn. And then Brandon, here he goes again, like his experience. He decides to whistle at him. So he does a little, like one of those, and the buck like stops. And he looks to his left. Then he turns his head back and he sees me. And then Brandon goes, and he does one of those. And he turned broadside. Oh, so yeah. I had to kind of guess the range that he was at. Mm-hmm. And I thought he might have walked maybe another 10 yards. So I went from 44 yards up to 53. But he was actually standing at 60. Ooh. So from the way I could shoot, because on Brandon's angle, everything looks perfect. But from my angle, there was brush covering up his vitals from like the front part of his chest. Oh. And down. So the only place I could literally put that shot was by the liver, and that's it. I knew I couldn't go anywhere back. So I shoot. He doesn't jump the string, but he drops, and he drops almost a foot. And when he done that, like it was perfect, because like I think I would have hit him low, and it would have been a non-fatal shot. Mm-hmm. But he ended up ducking so much to the point where it just went straight through the center of the liver. Mm-hmm. And he takes off. I instantly thought I missed because I couldn't see over the brush, and he had dropped. So instantly I'm like, oh, I missed. And Brandon's like, what? Really? You missed? I'm like, yeah, I think I shot right under him. And he goes back, he looks at the foot, he goes, dude, you smoked him. I'm like, what? He goes, you smoked him. And I'm like trying to play it all cool, because the night before I thought I'd smoked one and I didn't. Yeah. Literally, it was less than 24 hours ago.
In your own head.
Yeah. And then it's like, I explain how I'm feeling to the cameras and stuff like that. And he's like, okay. And then JC and Axel kept eyes on the buck. And then this is when the complete chaos started to happen. So we knew I hit him in the liver. So we knew it was going to take some time for him to die.
Mm-hmm.
So then Dave, like, this, like the major antagonist of this story, on August 31st, he meets us, gives us his phone number, tells us if we shoot anything that runs onto his property, near his property, call him, let him know. He'll be happy to walk, with us to go retrieve him and help us out, right?
Yeah.
So he owns about a half acre, and he has like this apple orchard on his property where a lot of those mule deer would come from off of Kyle's property onto his and transition through. And he doesn't hunt, but he's not an anti-hunter. But like after I tell you what happened next, like you're gonna be so confused, just like what we were too. So we get in a position. We watch my buck bed. He had two younger bucks that were with him that were bedded right beside him, or standing right beside him. So what had let me know that was like, again, how fatal the shot was going to be was my buck was bedded while the other two were just standing by him, like looking down at him, like looking at him, like, like, are you going to get up? Are you okay? Why won't you move? Like, kind of thing, So then we get in the position, and the only reason I can remember this distance because there's just some things you will never forget. So we got 494 yards away.
Wow.
Brandon decided to, call Dave and tell Dave that we shot a buck and we're going to try to slip in there and get another arrow in him. And is it okay if I curse on your show? Or do you not?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Right. Okay. So he's just like, why in the F would you guys effing do that? You guys are effing a-holes. Why are you effing shooting deer? I should effing like shoot you guys like the deer you guys are hunting. You guys are just effing a-holes. And he just literally like laid into us, like complete bipolar, like just switch.
Sounds like a psycho.
That's not even the worst part. Like that was nothing compared to what he did next, right? So we're all standing there while he's like giving us like this 3-4 minute, verbal onslaught.
Yeah.
And Brandon just had enough, and he just hung up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Tell me you guys got that on video." There's literally 5 of us there. There's 2 people that were there paid full time to run cameras.
Yeah.
Nobody had record on anything.
Oh.
So then he starts like sending Brandon like these text messages like, "Where's his deer? I'm going to go get him myself." Like, what? Jeez. So next thing we know, we're all watching him, like, because we got videos and pictures of all this happening, right? He comes out of his house and he starts looking for the buck. So the 2 younger bucks that were with my buck take off, and run directly to us, like run right past us on the field. And then we spotted the unthinkable. So the big road buck that JC wanted was in between Dave, the angry, bipolar, demonically possessed guy. We got this wedge, and in this little, this little strip of trees, or the wedge, what we were calling it, that buck is bedded there. And I'm telling JC, like, get your bow, like we can double up and just be done, and we can all just tag along with Brandon and elk hunting. He's like, nah, we're just gonna get your deer. And it just shows like, the kind of guy JC is, and like he's a class act and he's a great guy. And he's like, nah, we're just gonna focus on your deer right now, DJ. Like, we got plenty of time, to get me on a mule deer. So we're gonna get our hands on your buck, and if we gotta whoop Dave's ass, we're gonna whoop Dave's ass. If we gotta do it again, because JC's from Mississippi, and I'm from Florida. So like, we don't. For us, it's like we don't take too kindly to being disrespected, in general, yet alone disrespecting us for something that we're so passionate about. Like, this is what they do full time, and this is my first time, going out west and hunting mule deer. And it's like, and this guy's like, was trying to somewhat ruin the experience. So he bumped my buck, and he went about 80 yards further north onto our property and bedded back down again into some trees. And Dave walked past him not once, not twice, not 3 times, but he walked past him at least 5 or 6 times. And like, and he was over 170 plus inch, mule deer. And he walked past him, bedded like, 5 or 6 times. And he found my arrow. He's like, I found your arrow. There was no blood on it. And that was actually not, the case, because it was actually soaked.
Yeah.
You couldn't even really tell that my fletches were orange, which is what they were, and I had orange wraps on them, from the bow rack. So while all this is happening, we're talking to, Cal Lopez, the owner of KB Outdoors, and we had called, Colorado,
Yep.
Parks and Wildlife System, and they're telling us that, that they don't have an officer working in our district today, so they got to send somebody else from a different district. So don't engage with him. He could potentially have a weapon. We're thinking like there's 5 of us and there's only one of him. It's like, he can't shoot all. he can't shoot all of us. Like he's eventually gonna run out of bullets if he's got anything. So everybody else is fired up. Like I'm ready just to say, F this guy. We're gonna go get our buck, and JC's right along with me, and so is everybody else. And Brandon's like, no, like we need to relax. Like we need to do this properly. We need to make sure this is documented so that way, like we can get him with hunter harassment and whatever else that may come with the acts that he's committed against us. Because now he's trespassing onto our property. Now he's committed, hunter harassment, and he's also like verbally, threatened all of our lives and stuff like that over a deer that was never on his property or too close near to it. So then we get all that done, and I shot my buck close, like maybe 10-20. And then finally the Colorado Parks and Wildlife officer gets there, and like, and Brandon to verify this, too, because a lot of people, I don't even think I told it to the last podcast I did, but the Colorado guy gets there, he talks to Dave, Crazy Dave. And he comes up to our truck, and he's like, giving us the hand, telling us that, don't enter onto his property and stuff like that. And he's like, so I'm going to take one of you guys and we're going to go get a deer. I'm like, with all due respect, officer, like that's not going to happen. It's like, this is my first time, coming to Colorado to hunt. I won this, this free velvet mule deer hunt. This is what these guys do to provide and take care of their families. And we refuse. And I refuse to let some guy like this, ruin like the hunt and ruin his memory. Like we haven't done anything legal. The buck is on our property. We can go retrieve him. And then he kind of stops, and he grins his face up. It was kind of almost like biting his lip, like thinking about it. And he's like, okay, I'll bring 3 of you guys. And then Brandon's like, I'm like, no, like we all can go. And then Brandon's like, DJ, let's just bring 3. Then he stops and he goes, you know what? Everybody come. Everybody come. So then he stops us and tells us, like, he doesn't care if we videotape or if we film. Don't film him. And then don't film, Dave's house in the background.
Yeah.
So then we go and we get our hands on this buck. He's just a toad, like just a toad with it. It took almost 2 hours to get our hands on him after the shot. He probably died maybe 40 minutes after the shot because it was a liver shot. And we started worrying about the meat. We started worrying about the body getting stiff and everything like that.
Yep.
And all this is happening. In the meantime, like the 200-inch muley damn near is still sitting in the same exact spot. So that was driving me wild. And we got him. We done the grip and grin and stuff like that, and got all our pictures. And then like that was it. And then I started going, mule deer hunting with JC in the evenings and elk hunting with Brandon in the mornings. And it was just like an incredible experience. And literally I got to do all that. And I got all those, those free gifts for just following somebody on Instagram and commenting done. Like, that's it. Like, I literally I literally was able to cross off, heading out west, first velvet like deer of any kind, first velvet mule deer. And I got to go to a state I had never been to before. And it was all, due to the hard work of everybody, with Cal Lopez at KB Outdoors. And then, Brandon Adams, My World Outdoors, JC, My World Outdoors. And then, Tyler Saunders from Tyler Saunders Hunts. And, Axel from Rack Daddies. And it was like, we all were able to, come together for such a special hunt. And not just for me, but for them too, because it's like, they were out hunting and everybody had fun. Everybody had a great experience. And, it was great, and I'm happy that they were able to give someone that opportunity. And then they just had another one that they gave away for, whitetail in Oklahoma. And that guy got tagged out on his first hunt. So that was great.
That's so killer, dude. That's, those experiences are so awesome because it's like for an average guy, that's like once in a lifetime experiences, like
Yeah.
not everybody, not only do you get to go hunt somewhere like that would cost someone like you or me a ton of money and time that,
Oh yeah.
that I don't personally have, and it's like,
Me either.
yeah, so it's like these giveaways and stuff are awesome, and I have kind of a similar experience, not quite to the extent you did, but I got a buddy who has a hunting podcast down in Texas, and he had this idea, and we just kind of we went on each other's shows, and we just kind of talked hunting and the outdoors in general, and became really good friends. And he put together this podcast conference down in Texas, and he's like, "Hey man, you want to fly down here and help me set up and do all this stuff, and you just got to buy your ticket." And I was like, "Sweet." And I got to go turkey hunting down in Texas, and it was like a similar experience. Like we all kind of got skunked because it was super late season, and all the turkeys kind of got hip to everybody being on this ranch down there. But those experiences like that are just so almost life changing, and they're really important, I think, to people, because you get to like experience this whole like Colorado is probably the equivalent to Texas, how like in how different it is from kind of the Midwest where we live. It's just so drastically different landscapes, and you get to learn from like experts, which is super important. We're down in Texas, had TV show hosts and rock stars and famous people and journalists like nature writers, and I'm sitting there like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
I got you.
yeah, so that's such a wild story, dude. Like, that's congrats on that hunt and everything. And I kind of have something that like I debate a lot in my head is, a lot of people who are maybe in they're younger, like maybe in their 20s and 30s. Like, I just don't see them hunting as much as like maybe people who are a little bit older. And I was kind of curious of your thoughts on that, like why there's this big gap in the hunting world. Like, I feel like not that many people are hunting anymore, and I don't know if it's a stigma or if it's just like modern society's so like set up for comfort and stuff, but it is something I'm constantly pondering while I'm sitting up in the deer blind, just bored out of my mind waiting for deer to walk around. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, my thoughts on that is just yeah, statistically speaking, across the world we're seeing less and less hunters, and I just don't know if it's just a combination of the technology we have for youth to to have taken up their time, or if we just don't have the right amount of leadership trying to get our youth outdoors. And then, one of the biggest things that makes me upset the most is when you have hunters bashing newer hunters.
Yes.
And it discourages a lot of people from hunting and even fishing, because it's just like, I see it all the time right now. It's like, hunters are downing hunters in every way, shape, or form. And it's sad because it's like, in my opinion, you don't know what someone had to do, or, the amount of experience they have when they harvested, say, a 2-year-old buck or a 3-year-old buck, or that doe or a spike, or, or whatever it may be. And you watch them, they go out, they buy a license, they go either on public land or a permission piece, or somebody invited them to hunt out on a weekend. They shoot something and they're excited and they're proud about it.
Yeah.
And then, they put a picture on Facebook or Instagram, and instantly, you shot that? Oh, you're a dumbass. Like, oh, I would have never shot that. Why'd you shoot that? You let them go, you let them grow, or it's just, and to me, that's one of the biggest things that I can see right now, is that there's just so much of hunters bashing other hunters. And I look at that and it's sad, because it's just like, regardless from, and the way I feel about it is like, if you bought your own license, or if someone bought it for you, you went out and you shot something, to hell with anybody else thinks. Like, be happy of what you've done, because somebody else didn't get that. Somebody else might not have shot it, It doesn't have to be the biggest elk or the biggest, moose or bear or mule deer or whitetail or blacktail, whatever it may be that you're hunting. You just enjoy it. You just be proud of what you've done, because like, you never know like who's watching you and who you can inspire from hunting. Or you might have that one friend like yourself, like who's always been interested in the outdoors. And now all of a sudden someone's inviting you, or you're inviting them, and you're teaching them what you know. And all of a sudden now you got a hunting partner. Now you got a hunting friend. Now you got a hunting buddy. And then he may invite somebody else. Now all of a sudden you have somebody else who's buying a hunting license and they're getting into conservation. That's one more person to help us fight, some of these guys that are up in these Congress positions who are literally looking to take away our hunting rights.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And it blows my mind when I see some of that stuff sometimes on hunters bashing hunters. And we have the fight of losing, our youth to technology and other things. Then the ones that we do have actively hunting are bashing each other. So it's like how do you win? How do we as positive hunters promote hunting, take back our youth, and stop the other hunters from bashing other hunters? That's what boggles my brain on how to do it and how to do it effectively.
And that's why I'm happy there's people like you out there that are, filming it and kind of connecting that gap between technology and, like everybody's on their phone nowadays. So you're like bridging that gap between the outdoors and the digital world. And, I think people are starting to come around to it. I mean, I know so many people who wouldn't even consider trying deer because they think it's gross or something. But there's I mean, we could talk about this for 10 hours, because you think about how modern food is produced, it's kind of grosser than just going out and hunting something yourself. You literally watch it, you hunt it, you kill it, you harvest it, you bring the meat into your house, and you saw the whole process. Whereas God only knows what's in the stuff you buy at the store. It could be 15, 20 different animals ground up into who knows what, and it's it's such a, when you think about it, it's actually way better for you and healthier to go out and get your own animal. And there's this accomplishment that you've done something that's incredibly difficult and hard. So yeah, I mean, how much on average, of your diet, I guess, would you say is made up of stuff you hunt?
Well, considering I went almost 3 years without shooting a deer, it was very slim.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man.
it was very slim for a while, but since I came back from Colorado, I've been able to basically to feast on my mule deer, and I still got a bunch of him left, and I just got all the meat back from my buck in Minnesota. I gave my other 2 does away to one of my coworkers because
Nice.
Him and his family, I gave him my word back in 2020 that whenever I get into the city hunt, I'm going to be authorized to get 2 doe tags. So I'm going to get them. I'm going to give them to you. And he's like, absolutely. I'll take them. Cause I'm just I have a family of 4. So it's I don't necessarily need all that much, because if I take all the meat from everything that I harvested, that's 4 deer. And I'm potentially working on 5 if I get one, in Wisconsin. And right now I'm maxed out with just two deer in my freezer.
Yeah.
So it's I couldn't imagine I'd have to spend more money to get another freezer to get another one.
Yep.
But we were even having that conversation the other day when I was at work, because if you think about it, I'm 27, and I would look at the gap between some of the individuals that I would know where, older brother or older sister, is smaller, and then younger sister or younger brother is typically bigger than them. And then we started thinking about, since growing up in the 90s, how much of these, steroids and hormones and these other additives have been going into the food that we've been being almost force fed, 40 hours a week at school.
Yep.
On the weekends. And then when you get home, how much of that, organic meat are you getting? How much of that steroid, additive, added hormone meat are you getting per day? And so many people, are coming up with more diseases, and they have different other types of body functions that are being linked to some of the stuff that we're putting in with these chemicals. When it comes to our food, our fruit, our vegetables, how much of it can we control? But I know if I go out and shoot something in the wild, which it's been doing nothing but eating acorns, other different types of food sources, and it's clean, I can feel comfortable eating that
Mm-hmm.
because it's 100% organic. Like I don't have to worry about like, if this was fed steroids or if that was fed steroids or, what factory did this come from or, blah, blah, blah. I literally watch it in the wild. I just shot it, field dressed it, brought it to the processor. Processor got him, paid the processor, got the taxidermist paid up for a shoulder mount. And now I have all these people benefiting off of me hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, I get the benefit, my family gets the benefit off of the meat. And that's a
Yeah,
win-win situation for me.
exactly. I feel like 100% agree with you, man. And another thing that I've kind of noticed in the hunting world is, you know, we, to take a step back, you get a lot of these stereotypes with hunting, which I'm sure you're totally aware of, with like, oh, hunters are just rednecks, they drink beer, they're big fat guys, and blah, 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 which, there's a little truth here and there to that. But it's like, I kind of see this movement of hunters being kind of like almost fitness models. Like some of these hunters that you're seeing on social media are like jacked, and I try my best to maintain some like decent amount of physical fitness. Like I'm no bodybuilder or anything, but you seem to be in pretty good shape yourself. Do you find that is important for you, not only with hunting but just like in the outdoors in general, to make it like easier? Like because these deer aren't light most of the time. I mean, you're dragging this thing out, especially if you're solo hunting. You got some weight you got to carry or drag, and do you find it beneficial to stay in shape to be able to hunt like effectively? And even pulling a bowstring back can be a pain in the ass, frankly.
Yeah. I've always tried to stay in somewhat good shape. I've always have tried to practice jujitsu and kickboxing and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
which requires a great ordeal of stamina, especially when you're trying to stop somebody from choking you out or knocking
Mm-hmm.
you out or bringing you down to the ground or any of those other things that happens, in combat sports.
Yeah.
And last spring, I decided to put on over 30 pounds of muscle in almost 120 days. And I did
Mm-hmm.
that. So I went from being
Wow.
151 or 52 pounds, and the heaviest I topped out at was 192 pounds.
Damn.
So it was like I was getting hashtag whitetail fit
I love it.
for a long time. And honestly, those drags and everything else they will seriously kick your ass, even if you're in
Mm-hmm.
shape. Like
Yes.
when I had Brandon there to help me with my mule deer, it was still tough.
Mm.
And then I get back to Minnesota, I shot my first two does and they weren't as bad. And then I shot my buck and it was like, holy hell. It took me almost an hour to get him back to the truck. He broke my deer cart. And I had to maneuver him up and around rocks, over tree branches, going from incline to decline, incline to decline. And then I had my girlfriend's dad who was with me. I don't think I could have done it without him too. I had to have him, kind of lift up the antlers to me in the back end of the truck and then grab a leg. And I had to try to almost deadlift him up onto the truck and then slide him all the way, ass in back into the back of the truck. And it's like, even when you think you're in shape and you get out here and you have to do this type of stuff, you're going to be reminded so quickly of how badly you aren't in shape. And I'm somebody who would try to work out, 3 to 5 days a week minimum.
Yeah.
I still felt like, I got my butt kicked. And I would tell myself, I wonder how some of these people who don't who aren't in as good a shape, how do they feel when they're doing some of this stuff? Do they get the truck as far as they can? Do they bring the wheeler in as far as they can? Or if the cart works, or did they quarter them out? And because I've always wanted to quarter something out in the woods, and I haven't had the opportunity yet because I always thought it was cool. And I got my Horn Hunter packs, which is made to pack out that type of stuff, but I haven't been able to use it yet. Even when I was in Colorado and I'm out west, quote unquote, so I was supposed to be able to pack something out, and I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, that's for when you're walking some big miles, I think. That's some Ranella stuff over there out in the middle of the mountains, just, in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, dude, it is a lot of work and it is a lot of fun. And I found, one of the craziest things that's benefited me from, just staying active and trying to stay in good shape is, when that moment when it's just you and the deer, and you're trying not to get busted. You're trying to be as still as possible. You got your bow drawn back at what, like 65, 70 pounds or something. And you're just holding this weight there, trying not to move a muscle while this thing's looking at you. And it's just like the most intense moment. And I feel like when you live in that zone, it really like through exercise or whatever, like you get your heart rate up and you try and focus and stay in the zone. Like I feel like that really translates well to hunting, because that's essentially what happens. Your heart rate just jacks through the roof. You're staring this thing down. It's literally a battle of life and death. And it's just like, it's a wild experience. And I don't know how quite to describe buck fever to someone other than that. Like it feels like you're going to have a heart attack and almost like shit your pants all at the same time. Like I don't know how to describe it, man. Like I don't know how you would describe it, but man, it is wild.
Well, for me, it's like, honestly, the most nervous I've ever been was when I've harvested animals with my rifle. I don't know why I get that way. I just feel like I'm not as effective with a rifle as I am with my bow. Because
that's interesting.
I just don't know if it's just mentally that I tell myself, if I put too much pressure on this trigger when I'm trying to shoot, I'm going to jerk the shot.
I see that. I can see that.
If I don't have my weapon stored properly in my shoulder, like this recoil is going to cause my shot to be a few inches high or a few inches low, left or right. Mm-hmm. Compared to having an animal in my wheelhouse with my bow, which is, where you got more variables, but they can cause you to miss the shot than with a rifle. And I just have this ultimate sense of calm, because it's just like, I don't know what I do other than I tell myself, if you don't make this shot, you're going to miss an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like you just get that tunnel vision on where you want to put your arrow, like watching where this animal is going to step at. And then once it gets to that spot and you're ready to go, then you make the shot. Boom. Mm-hmm. And that's how it is for me. I don't know how it is for other people, but it's like I feel more confident with my bow than I do with my rifle. And it's just, for me, it's just that rush of like, okay, it's getting ready to happen. Like all your work is getting ready to pay off. Mm-hmm. You just got to put the icing on the cake, put that arrow where it needs to be, either in his lungs, his heart, those major vitals. It's going to help you get this animal down, as quickly and as lethal as possible. Like that's where you have to put this shot, or you're going to miss this opportunity. Yeah. And these opportunities come few and far between. Like you don't know when the next one will be. You don't know that. So then I tell myself, you have one right now, that all you have to do is focus on the shot and then track it and you're done. Like that's it. Boom.
And it's so wild with a bow too, because my first deer 5 years ago was with a shotgun. It was just a slug. It was out here in the cornfields of Ohio, right outside of my front door, basically. And it was enthralling. And then I took up the bow pretty much that same year. My buddy gave me a hand-me-down bow, and I was like, well, why would I want to shoot it with a bow? And he's like, well, instead of having a week and 2 days to shoot a deer, you have basically like 3 or 4 months where you can hunt nonstop and have greater chances. So I really took up the bow. And, he gave me his old bow, and it was kind of we'll just say it was a piece of junk, because I could not get that. I thought it was either the hardest sport I've ever taken up, or I was like just a terrible shot. And I went out and bought a Bear Divergent bow, and that's like a game changer for me, dude. It's like basically like shooting a gun. Like it's so fast and accurate and quiet. It's just like insane. And I've fallen in love with archery and archery hunting because it's so, you have to be dedicated, you have to be like disciplined, and you have to like really understand the craft. And like I've fallen in love with it. I feel like it's also more intimate, because like you're talking like a 20 to 30 yard shot most of the time, especially in like the tree stand, which in the Midwest is like our mainstay basically. And the last deer I got like a few days ago was from a tree stand. He was like 18 yards, man. And I'm just like, it's almost like I can't believe it happened finally. 4 years of practicing bow for that one moment. And it's just so intense. Like you're like, you could smell each other basically. You're so close. And it's such a wild, and how do you approach archery? And I know we're getting like into an hour here. I don't want to keep you all night because you're probably very tired, but how do you approach archery? Is it kind of like do you treat it as a craft, or have you been doing it so long that it's kind of like second nature to you, or what's your approach with that?
Well, it's like this year I've had the new experience of traveling out west. Mm-hmm. So I've had to shoot at longer distances.
Yeah.
And even when I wasn't traveling out west, like I'd have this event called, Bowfest at the Mondeluk Resort in Superior, Wisconsin, where you'd get thrown an 80 or a 90 or an 100-yard shot. So for me, I've been shooting a bow for about as long as I can remember. And this was back when, I had this little like Banshee bow back in first grade. My dad had got me from Walmart, and I had like the little styrofoam target with like the blue and the red and the yellow, for the dots on there. And I've been shooting them for as long as I remember. He got me my first like real big boy bow when I was in sixth grade. And he would literally make me shoot that thing before football practice, after school, when it's like right at last light, like, and not even knowing that like he's conditioning me to getting into the habit of shooting my bow regularly. So that way, like in any of these situations, like I'm comfortable shooting in. Mm-hmm. You got the last 5 minutes of legal light, bam, your buck just walked out. Now you got to take a shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, you know what? You just got done with school, but like, coach canceled football practice today. I got the bow in the back bed of the truck. I can go hunt. Bam. Mm-hmm. It's like getting yourself ready for all these situations and stuff like that. And for me, I won't say it's second nature because I feel like it's like what you said. It's a craft. Mm-hmm. There's no walking away from archery for a month or 2 months or 3 months and expecting yourself to be right where you left off at.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't happen. You'll have professional archers, which are the best in the world. That's their job. That's what they get paid to do. They will tell you sometimes it's hard for them to take a week or 2 weeks off and come back, and they're not where they were at prior to them leaving.
Yeah. And
archery is a sport where like it's extremely mental. You can miss your shot because like you say, for instance, you dropped your elbow or you weren't anchored properly, right? Yep. And all of a sudden, it's not me, it's my bow. And then you're adjusting your sight, right?
Yeah.
Or you're adjusting the rest or anything other than telling yourself that it was you, not your equipment. And sometimes like you can do that so many times and then you scratch your head like, okay, well, maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was my equipment. But you have to, like, my opinion, you got to be able to understand that it's a craft and understand that, like, when you're an archery hunter, you owe it to those animals to hit them in a place where it's going to kill them the quickest and most ethical, period. Mm-hmm. Like, we owe that because, like, it doesn't matter how fancy your camo is. It doesn't matter how sweet your truck is. It does not matter, if you got, property down in Southern Iowa with Lee and Tiffany Lukowski. If you can't make the shot, everything else is peanuts because, like, that's most important. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. You can get busted because the wind was wrong. You can get caught coming into your stand late. You can do everything else wrong, in my opinion, in an archery hunt. But if you miss that shot, it's game over. If you hit that animal in a place where like it's not his vitals, it's going to die. Like it's not going to die. Like that is all on you. Like, and that's the difference between like having, a great memory or a great heartache. And this year for me, mentally it was tough to overcome that time where I had shot that first buck, that first mule deer on opening day of the season at 57 yards. I thought I smoked him and I didn't. Mm-hmm. And I'm like upset with myself, but I'm not trying like to show like these other guys see that I'm upset with myself and I'm angry with myself because I'm still trying to process like how did I miss? How did I miss? And knowing that I know I can make the shot because I had a shootout with Brandon at 57 yards. Like, I know I can make the 57-yard shot. Like, what did I do? And I'm looking at the footage that Brandon sent me to see like what was happening. And I couldn't see if I jerked my hand. I couldn't see or knowing what it was. And then to come back and fight those demons. And then the next day to make an even further shot with my sight being set at 53 yards, where that animal was actually standing at 60 yards. But if it wasn't for me, like actually even practicing shooting those longer distances, how would I have known, like, you know, the proper yardage or even eyeing him up to what he could possibly be at?
Mm-hmm.
Without that practice, without that repetition, because it's like what you say, like, I believe it's a craft, but it can be, you know, like second nature to you if you do it enough and do it consistently enough.
Yep. And that's, you know, those mistakes, they always haunt you. You know, I got busted a few times this season on a property I was at, and like even the slightest thing, like I had this doe staring me right in the eyes, like just before the end of shooting light, and I was at full draw, and I was just waiting for her to take one more step to move past a tree trunk so I could see her, like, you know, the bread basket. And like, I just couldn't hold on to the bow. We're talking like 5-6 minutes of just holding it at full tension. And, you know, those moments haunt you. But yeah, like missing or taking a bad shot definitely is not a great feeling, because that happened on my first year I got with the shotgun. I was so green. I just had a bad shot and I felt like crap for weeks, you know. But that's part of hunting, man, too. Also, like, it's you're playing a game of life and death. It's not something to be taken lightly. And, you know, people just think hunters are out there just killing stuff because they have this bloodlust. And I haven't met any that are that way, but, you know, I want to wrap up here, and I want to give you the last minute or so here to just kind of let people know where they can learn more about you and follow your page and all that stuff, because you put out really great content all the time. I've been seeing you pop up for years on social media. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask this dude to come on my podcast because he's always hunting, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But no, I just want to say thank you for having me on the podcast, man. And I appreciate you for giving me your time and your platform, because I understand, you know, it doesn't matter how big I may make it or how little I may be. It's like, you know, when people select me or ask me to do stuff like this, I'm always going to want to do it, because it's like, you know, I feel like, you know, who knows who I can reach that might be listening to you, who may not be following me on Instagram. They may not be following me on YouTube.
Yep. And
also to kind of help people who may be as big as me or not as big as me to help their platform grow. Cause I feel like it's always going to be a win-win, you know, in those situations. And always, like, I want to help and always do what I can for other people. Absolutely. Who are out practicing good hunting morals and ethics, you know, within our love and passion. Some people want to call it an industry. Some people want to call it a sport, but it's like, you know, for me, it's a love and it's a passion.
Mm-hmm.
But, for anybody listening, you guys can follow me at D Jones Outdoors. You know, is a compound word. Mm-hmm. And for some of you guys who may not know what a compound word is, it's one giant word composed of other words all together at once. So it'd be, you know, D Jones Outdoors on Instagram and D Jones Outdoors on YouTube.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I cannot wait to see more of your hunting season this year and the years to come.
Thank you. I'm going to try to keep the good luck rolling and hopefully knock something down in Wisconsin by the end of the month and call it a wrap.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this episode of the Aptitude Outdoors podcast here on YouTube. If you can, help me out. Go down below, hit that subscribe button. And if you're feeling a little frisky, head over to iTunes and leave the podcast a rating or review there as well. I want to take a minute here to thank DJ for coming on. Dude has some crazy stories from hunting out west, and he's on Instagram all the time posting really great content, so I highly suggest you check it out. I will put a link down below where you can learn more about him. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.